What does it actually feel like to go from a broke trainee eating instant noodles in a tiny dorm room to being one of the biggest K-pop acts on the planet, selling out stadiums across 5 continents, and having more zeros in your bank account than you can count? For most of us, that question stays hypothetical. But for the 8 young men of Stray Kids, Bangchan, Lino, Changbin, Hyunjin, Han, Felix, Seungmin, and I.N, that leap from nothing to everything became their actual reality. And when the money came, they didn't spend it all on designer fits or sports cars first. The very first thing on their minds was mom and dad. Today, we're counting down the 8 most expensive, most emotional, most jaw-dropping gifts Stray Kids members ever gave their parents, and trust me, some of these will absolutely wreck you. Can a house say "I love you" better than words ever could? Can one flight ticket carry the weight of years of sacrifice? And what happens when the quietest member makes the loudest gesture of all? Stay locked in, because the last one on this list? It'll hit different. Number 8, Bangchan, the house that guilt built, a son's promise fulfilled. Let's rewind the clock to 2010. Picture this, a 13-year-old boy standing at the departure gate of Sydney's Kingsford Smith Airport, clutching a one-way ticket to Seoul, South Korea. His mom is trying not to cry. His dad is holding it together, barely. His younger siblings, Barry and Hannah, don't fully understand why their big brother is leaving. That boy is Christopher Bang, the kid the world would eventually come to know as Bangchan, the leader of Stray Kids. At 13, while other kids his age in Sydney were worried about high school homework and weekend barbecues, Chan made a decision that most adults wouldn't have the guts to make. He left behind his entire life, his family, his comfort zone, everything, to chase a dream in a country where he barely spoke the language. He auditioned for JYP Entertainment during a global audition held in Australia, and against thousands of hopefuls, he got selected. But here's what people don't talk about enough, what that decision cost his family. His parents, who had built a stable life in the suburbs of Sydney, had to let their firstborn son fly to the other side of the world, alone, as a minor, into an entertainment industry notorious for chewing up young trainees and spitting them out. The statistics were brutal even back then. JYP Entertainment alone had hundreds of trainees at any given time, and the debut rate? Less than 5%. So imagine being Chan's parents, watching your 13-year-old disappear into that machine, knowing full well the odds were stacked against him. They supported him anyway. They let him go. And Chan? He never, ever forgot that sacrifice. He trained at JYP for 7 years. 7. Let that sink in. From 2010 to 2017, while other trainees came and went, while friendships formed and shattered, while he watched group after group debut without him, Bangchan stayed. There were moments, he's talked about this openly on his late-night V-Live series, Chan's Room, where he wanted to quit. Where the loneliness got so bad he'd call home to Sydney at 3 a.m. Korean time just to hear his mom's voice. Where he questioned whether the sacrifice was worth it, not for himself, but for his parents, who were paying an emotional price no amount of money could cover. During those 7 years of training, Chan wasn't earning a salary. Trainees in the K-pop system don't get paid. In fact, the company invests in their training, housing, and food, and that investment gets tallied up as a debt the trainee has to pay back through future earnings if they ever debut. So, for 7 years, Chan's family got nothing back financially. 7 years of their son being gone, growing up in a foreign country, missing birthdays, missing Christmases, missing the everyday moments that make a family, and the return on that emotional investment was zero. Until it wasn't. Stray Kids debuted on March 25, 2018, and within just a few years, they went from a mid-tier JYP group to a global phenomenon. Album sales exploded. World tours sold out in minutes. Brand deals with massive companies like Samsung, Coca-Cola, and Louis Vuitton started rolling in. And Bangchan, as the leader and a key producer who co-writes and co-produces nearly every Stray Kids track, was earning not just idle money, but also significant producer royalties. So, what did he do with that money? He bought his parents a house. Not just any house, a house in Sydney, Australia, one of the most brutally expensive real estate markets on the entire planet. If you know anything about Sydney property, you know the numbers are insane. The median house price in Greater Sydney hovers around 1.4 million Australian dollars, and in desirable suburban areas, the kind of neighborhoods where you'd want your parents to live comfortably, safely. With good schools nearby for your younger siblings, you're easily looking at 1.8 to 2.5 million Australian dollars or more. We're talking roughly 1.2 to 1.7 million US dollars just for a family home. That's not a mansion. That's not a penthouse. That's just a solid, respectable house in a city where real estate prices rival London and New York. Chan has referenced this gift in subtle ways across various interviews and V-Live sessions, always with that quiet, almost shy pride that defines his personality. He doesn't brag. He doesn't flash receipts. But when fans asked him on Chan's Room what made him happiest about Stray Kids' success, his answer wasn't about chart positions or award show trophies. It was about being able to take care of his family. About being able to give his parents a home and tell them, the 7 years you waited, the 7 years you let me chase this dream, it was worth it. I can prove it now. And here's the layer that makes this story hit even harder, the guilt factor. Chan has spoken openly about the guilt he carried for years, the guilt of being the absent son, the guilt of missing his younger siblings growing up, the guilt of putting his parents through emotional hell during those long trainee years when debut was never guaranteed. That house wasn't just a financial transaction. It was an apology. It was a thank you. It was a physical, tangible, brick and mortar manifestation of every late-night phone call, every homesick tear, every moment he almost gave up but didn't because his parents told him to keep going. When Stray Kids fandom learned about this, the reaction was overwhelming. Fan forums lit up with emotional posts. People who knew the backstory of Chan's 7-year trainee journey understood that this wasn't just a rich idol buying real estate. This was a son closing a loop. Fulfilling a promise he probably made to himself on that plane from Sydney to Seoul when he was barely a teenager. The house in Sydney represents something bigger than its market value. It represents the idea that sacrifice, when met with relentless determination, can eventually transform into something beautiful. Chan took 7 years of loneliness, doubt, and separation from his family, and he turned it into a home. A literal home. And if you think that's emotional, we're just getting started. Because the next member on this list? They didn't just buy a gift, they engineered an entire surprise that left their parent in absolute tears. You ready? Number 7, Changbin, the first paycheck car, a rapper's debt to his father. You know what separates a kid who raps about being tough from a man who actually lived it? Receipts. Not metaphorical receipts, real ones. And Seo Changbin, Stray Kids' powerhouse rapper, producer, and lyrical savage, has the kind of receipt that would make any parent ugly cry on the spot. But before we get to the gift itself, you need to understand where Changbin came from, because context is everything in this story. Changbin was born on August 11, 1999, in Yongin, Gyeonggi-do, South Korea. Unlike some idols who come from wealthy entertainment families or have industry connections, Changbin's background was solidly middle class, maybe even leaning modest. His father worked long, grueling hours to provide stability for the family, and his mother held things together at home. Changbin has mentioned in interviews and on variety shows that growing up, money was never exactly flowing freely. They weren't poor, but they weren't comfortable either. There was always that unspoken tension in the household, that quiet stress that kids pick up on even when parents try to hide it, the stress of bills, of making sure there's enough, of wanting to give your children more than you had but not always being able to. And Changbin absorbed all of that. He's talked about how watching his father work so hard, day after day, year after year, planted something deep inside him, a drive, almost an obsession, to succeed. Not for fame, not for clout, but so he could one day look his dad in the eye and say, "You can rest now. I got this." That motivation bled directly into his music. If you listen to Changbin's lyrics, really listen, not just vibe to the flow, you hear it everywhere. Tracks like Streetlight, his contributions to songs like Gone Days, even his harder-hitting verses on 3 Ratcha productions, there's always an undercurrent of hunger of a kid who remembers what it felt like to want more and not have it. He raps with a chip on his shoulder not because he's trying to be edgy, but because that chip is real. It's carved from years of watching his parents sacrifice. So when Stray Kids started making real money, and we're talking significant money, because by 2021-2022, Stray Kids were selling millions of albums per release, touring globally, and racking up brand endorsements that put them in an entirely different financial galaxy. Changbin knew exactly what he wanted to do with his first truly substantial earnings. He bought his father a car. Now, in South Korea, buying your parent a car isn't just a gift, it's a cultural statement. It's one of the most significant gestures a child can make, especially a son to his father. In Korean culture, there's this deep-rooted concept of hyodo, which translates roughly to filial piety or devotion to one's parents. It's not just a nice idea, it's a core societal value that shapes how Koreans view success, maturity, and character. A person who achieves great success but neglects their parents is looked down upon, no matter how rich or famous they are. Conversely, a person who takes care of their parents, who gives back, who honors the sacrifices made, that person is respected on a level that transcends professional achievement. And in the hierarchy of hyodo gestures, buying your father a car ranks incredibly high, right up there with buying a house. Because a car in South Korea isn't cheap. Unlike the United States, where you can snag a decent used car for a few $1,000s, South Korea's car market, especially for anything above a basic compact, runs steep. Import taxes on foreign luxury vehicles can add 30-40% to the sticker price. Even domestic Korean brands like Hyundai and Kia, when you step into their premium lineups like the Genesis series, run well into the tens of millions of won. And from what's been pieced together from Changbin's own comments and fan accounts from the period, this wasn't a budget-friendly compact sedan he handed his dad the keys to. This was a proper, premium vehicle, the kind of car his father probably drove past on the road for decades, never imagining he'd own one. The kind of car that represents a complete shift in a family's social and economic identity. We're talking about a gift likely in the range of 50 to 80 million Korean won roughly. 40. 000. T. O. 40. 000 to 65. 000 USD, which, for a family that once counted every 1,000 bill, is nothing short of life-altering. But here's what destroyed fans when this story circulated. It wasn't the car itself that made people emotional. It was the way Changbin talked about it. On a VLive broadcast, when the topic of family came up, Changbin's entire demeanor shifted. The guy who spits bars with the ferocity of a heavyweight boxer, who performs on stage with an intensity that borders on intimidating, who is one of the most aggressive and confident stage presences in all of fourth-generation K-pop. That guy got quiet. His voice softened. His eyes got glassy. He talked about how his dad's reaction to the car wasn't what he expected. His father didn't jump up and down. He didn't celebrate. He just stood there, looking at the car and then looked at his son, and the tears came. Not loud, dramatic tears, quiet ones. The kind that roll down a grown man's face when he realizes his child has surpassed every hope and dream he ever held. Changbin said that in that moment, he felt like every hard day of training, every sleepless night in the studio producing tracks until 4 a.m., every moment of self-doubt and exhaustion, all of it collapsed into a single point of meaning. It wasn't about the car. It was about what the car represented, proof. Proof that the sacrifices weren't wasted. Proof that the kid who left home to chase a crazy dream of making music actually made it. Proof that the father who worked himself to the bone raised a son who would turn around and honor that work with everything he had. There's a lyric Changbin wrote, and stays who know, where he talks about wanting to be the kind of man his father would be proud of. Not a famous man. Not a rich man. A good man. A man who remembers. A man who gives back. And when he handed over those car keys, that lyric stopped being poetry and became prophecy. What makes this even more powerful is how Changbin carries this energy into his everyday life. He's not the type to flaunt wealth. You won't see him dripping in excessive designer logos or showing off luxury purchases on social media. His style is understated. His spending, by idol standards, is conservative. Because for Changbin, money isn't about flexing, it's about function. It's about what it can do for the people he loves. The car for his father was the first domino in what fans believe has been an ongoing series of financial support for his family, though Changbin keeps most of those details private out of respect for his parents' dignity. And honestly, that restraint, that quiet honor, says more about his character than any flashy Instagram post ever could. So yeah, number 7 is a car. But it's not just a car. It's a rapper's promise, sealed and delivered with 4 wheels and a full tank. And if Changbin's story made your chest tight, brace yourself, because the member coming in at number 6 took spoiling your parents to an entirely different level, one that involves international travel, a first-class experience, and a moment so pure it went viral. Still with me? Number 6, Felix. First-class tickets to a dream they never had, a son who flew his parents across the world. Let's talk about Lee Felix, or as the world knows him, just Felix. Born Lee Yongbok on September 15, 2000, in Sydney, Australia. This kid with the deepest voice in K-pop and possibly the most sunshine-packed personality in the entire entertainment industry has a story that starts almost identically to Bang Chan's, but diverges in one crucial, heartbreaking way. Felix's journey to Korea was even lonelier, and in some ways, even more traumatic. While Chan had years to slowly acclimate to Korean culture during his extended trainee period, Felix was thrown into the deep end at warp speed. He moved to South Korea as a teenager with barely functional Korean language skills. Imagine you're a kid from the suburbs of Sydney, where everything is in English, where the food is different, where the entire social framework is different, and suddenly you're dropped into one of the most demanding trainee systems in the world, where everything operates in Korean, where hierarchy is strict, where you're expected to dance, sing, rap, and perform at a professional level while simultaneously learning an entirely new language from scratch. Felix's early days in Korea were rough. Really rough. He's been open about the isolation, the frustration of not being able to express himself properly in Korean, the feeling of being the outsider in a room full of people who all spoke the same language fluently. There's a now legendary moment from the Stray Kids survival show in 2017 where Felix was actually eliminated from the group by JYP himself. Park Jin-young looked him in the eye and told him he wasn't ready. The devastation on Felix's face in that moment is still one of the hardest scenes to watch in K-pop reality show history. He was eventually brought back, of course. The other members fought for him, and JYP recognized his potential, but that elimination left a scar. And you know who felt that scar even deeper than Felix? His parents. Felix's family in Australia watched their son get publicly cut from the group he'd given up everything for, on national television, in a country thousands of kilometers away from home. His mother has talked, in the few glimpses fans have gotten of Felix's family life, about how painful that period was. The helplessness of watching your child struggle and not being able to physically be there to comfort him. The guilt of having let him go in the first place. The fear that maybe, just maybe, this dream was going to crush him. But Felix survived. More than survived, he thrived. He became one of the most beloved members of Stray Kids, known globally for his impossibly deep baritone voice, his incredible dancing, his baking hobby that spawned an entire sub-fandom, and most of all, his warmth. Felix radiates kindness the way the sun radiates heat, effortlessly, constantly, and in every direction. And when Stray Kids ascended to the upper echelon of global K-pop, selling out arenas from Los Angeles to Tokyo to London to Sao Paulo, Felix finally had the means to do something he'd been dreaming about since the day he left Sydney. He flew his parents out. First class. Not just once. Not just to Korea. Felix arranged for his parents to experience international first-class travel to come see him perform on Stray Kids world tours. We're talking about first-class airline tickets on long-haul international routes, Sydney to Seoul, Sydney to various tour cities, and if you know anything about first-class pricing on routes like these, you know we're not talking about pocket change. A single round-trip first-class ticket from Sydney to Seoul on a major carrier like Korean Air or Qantas runs anywhere from 16,000 to 30,000 USD per trip. And this wasn't a one-time thing. Felix has flown his family out multiple times across multiple tour cycles, meaning the cumulative cost of these flights alone likely stretches well into six figures over the years. But Felix didn't just buy plane tickets and call it a day. That's not how Felix operates. When his parents arrived, they got the full experience: luxury hotel accommodations, VIP treatment at the concert venues, backstage access, the works. Felix made sure his parents didn't just see him perform, he made sure they lived the life that their son's success had created. He wanted them to feel it, taste it, breathe it. To sit in that first-class cabin with the lie-flat seats and the champagne and the actual silverware and think, our son did this. Our little boy from Sydney did this. And here's where this story transcends the material and enters something deeper. For Felix's parents, particularly his mother, these trips weren't about luxury. They were about closure. Every time Felix's mom sat in that arena and watched tens of thousands of fans screaming her son's name, waving light sticks, singing lyrics that her boy helped create, it was a direct answer to every doubt, every fear, every sleepless night she'd endured since the day he left for Korea. It was the universe saying, you made the right call. Letting him go was the right call. Felix has shared, in his characteristically gentle and emotional way, that seeing his parents in the audience during concerts is the single most overwhelming experience of his career. Not the sold-out stadiums. Not the Billboard charts. Not the millions of album sales. His parents in the crowd, watching him. That's his peak. That's his everything. There's a specific moment that went semi-viral among stays. During one of Stray Kids' concert stops, Felix spotted his parents in the VIP section during a performance. He didn't break character entirely, because he's a professional, but fans with fan cams caught the micro-expression, the slight wobble in his composure, the way his eyes locked onto a specific spot in the crowd, the barely perceptible smile that was different from his stage smile. It was the smile of a son performing for his parents. Not for the fans, not for the cameras, not for the career for mom and dad. And that clip? It circulated through fan communities like wildfire. People who didn't even stan Stray Kids were sharing it, commenting things like, I don't know who this guy is, but I'm crying. That's the Felix effect. He makes strangers cry with his sincerity. What makes this gift particularly interesting from a cultural perspective is the intersection of Felix's dual identity. He's Korean-Australian. He straddles two cultures, two sets of values, two definitions of what it means to be a good son. In Australian culture, independence is celebrated. You grow up, you move out, you build your own life, and your relationship with your parents becomes more peer-to-peer. In Korean culture, as we discussed with Changbin, filial piety runs deep. Taking care of your parents isn't optional, it's foundational. Felix lives in both worlds simultaneously, and his gift reflects that duality perfectly. The first-class tickets are a Western-style grand gesture, experiential, luxurious, designed to create memories rather than accumulate material goods. But the motivation behind them is deeply Korean, honoring his parents' sacrifice, ensuring they share in his success, closing the emotional gap that physical distance created. It's beautiful, really. A bridge between two worlds, paid for with first-class airfare and paved with a son's relentless love. And for anyone doing the math, multiple first-class international flights, luxury hotel stays, VIP concert packages, meals, experiences, we're conservatively looking at a cumulative gift value north of 100,000 to 150,000 USD spread across several years of touring. That's not just generosity. That's devotion with a budget. So Felix gave his parents the sky, literally put them above the clouds in a first-class cabin, and showed them the world their sacrifice built. But if you think flying your parents around the globe is as emotional as this list gets, oh, you are not prepared for what's next. Because the member at number 5? They went shopping, and the bill they racked up for their mother would make most people's credit cards spontaneously combust. Don't go anywhere. Number 5, Hyunjin, the luxury shopping spree that broke the internet, a son's love in designer bags. Hwang Hyunjin. Just say that name in any K-pop circle and watch the room divide into two camps, people who are absolutely, hopelessly in love with him, and people who haven't met him yet. Born on March 20th, 2000, in Seoul, South Korea, Hyunjin is the member of Stray Kids who looks like he was sculpted by a Renaissance artist who had access to a time machine and a very generous budget. The cheekbones. The jawline. The way he moves on stage like gravity is a suggestion rather than a law. Hyunjin is, by virtually any metric, one of the most visually stunning human beings in the entire K-pop industry, and in an industry that is literally built on visual perfection. That's saying something. But here's what most casual observers miss about Hyunjin beneath the ethereal visuals, beneath the high-fashion Versace ambassador campaigns, beneath the viral fan cams that rack up tens of millions of views, there's a mama's boy. A full-blown, unashamed, deeply devoted mama's boy. And he wears that title with more pride than any designer label could ever provide. Hyunjin's relationship with his mother is legendary within the Stay fandom. He talks about her constantly on V Lives, in behind-the-scenes content, in interviews. Not in a rehearsed, PR-friendly way, but in the raw, unfiltered way of a son who genuinely considers his mom his best friend. He shared stories about calling her after tough days, about seeking her advice on personal matters, about how her opinion carries more weight than any critic or industry executive. When Hyunjin went through one of the most difficult periods of his public life, his hiatus in early 2021 due to a bullying controversy, it was his mother who anchored him. While the internet debated and dissected every aspect of the situation, while fans and antis waged war across social media platforms, Hyunjin was at home, with his mom, trying to find solid ground. She was his fortress, his safe place. And when he returned to activities, stronger and more mature, every Stay who understood the backstory knew that his mother's presence during that dark chapter was the difference between breaking and bending. So when Stray Kids hit the stratospheric level of success that turned them into global superstars, we're talking about a group that sold over 10 million albums in a single year, that headlined stadiums worldwide. That became one of the highest-earning acts in JYP Entertainment's entire history. Hyunjin knew exactly how he wanted to say thank you to the woman who held him together when the world tried to pull him apart. He took his mother shopping. And when I say shopping, I don't mean a trip to the local department store for a nice sweater and maybe a handbag from the mid-range section. No. Hyunjin took his mother on what fans have come to describe as a full-scale luxury shopping experience, the kind of shopping trip that involves flagship boutiques on Cheongdam-dong, Seoul's equivalent of Rodeo Drive, or the Champs-Élysées. We're talking about the golden triangle of Korean luxury retail, Gangnam District, where the storefronts of Chanel, Hermes, Louis Vuitton, Dior, and Gucci line the streets like temples to excess, where a single handbag can cost more than some people's monthly rent, and where the clientele includes K-drama actresses, chaebol wives, and apparently, a 20-something K-pop idol determined to spoil his mother beyond all reasonable limits. Now let's talk numbers, because this is where your jaw needs to prepare for impact. In South Korea, luxury goods carry some of the highest price tags in the world due to a combination of import duties, luxury taxes, and brand pricing strategies that treat the Korean market as a premium segment. A classic Chanel flat bag, the iconic quilted leather one with the interlocking CC clasp that's basically the holy grail of Korean luxury culture, retails in Seoul for approximately 15 to 19 million Korean won, which translates to roughly 11,000 to 14,500 USD. A single bag. One. And Hyunjin didn't buy just one. Based on what's been shared through fan accounts, social media glimpses, and Hyunjin's own subtle references, he treated his mother to multiple luxury items across several brands during these shopping trips. We're talking handbags, yes, multiple ones, but also clothing, accessories, shoes, and jewelry from top-tier fashion houses. When you start stacking Chanel bags with Dior ready-to-wear pieces, add in some Hermès accessories, even the entry-level Hermès items like silk scarves or small leather goods run. 38,000 to 75,000 USD in a single shopping excursion for his mom. And here's the cultural context that makes this even more significant. In South Korea, luxury handbags aren't just fashion accessories, they're social currency. They communicate status, success, and most importantly, they communicate that someone in your life loves you enough to invest that kind of money in your happiness. When a Korean son buys his mother a Chanel bag, it's not just about the leather and the stitching. It's a public declaration that says, "My mother deserves the best, and I can provide it." It's elevated to an art form. It's filial piety wrapped in lambskin and gold hardware. For Hyunjin's mother, who raised her son through the grueling trainee years, who supported him through his darkest public moment, who stayed up waiting for his late-night calls and sent him home cooked meals whenever she could. Receiving these gifts from her son wasn't about the brand names. Multiple fan accounts that discussed this moment noted what truly defined the experience. It was Hyunjin's behavior during the shopping trip itself. He wasn't just swiping cards and moving on. He was actively involved, picking things out for her, asking her opinion, insisting she try things on, wanting to see her reaction to each piece. He turned the shopping trip into an experience, a memory, a day that was entirely about her. Not about schedules, not about comebacks, not about the relentless grind of idle life, just a son and his mom, walking through beautiful stores, laughing, trying things on, being normal for a few hours in a life that is anything but. There's something profoundly beautiful about a young man who exists in the upper echelons of global fame and fashion, a man who has personally worn custom Versace on red carpets, who has been photographed for Vogue, who is considered one of the most stylish idols in the industry, choosing to redirect all of that fashion energy toward his mother. It's as if Hyunjin looked at his own glamorous, high-fashion world and said, "This is amazing. But it means nothing if my mom isn't dressed better than I am." And knowing Hyunjin's personality, the way he pours emotion into everything he does, whether it's a dance performance, a painting, or a conversation, you know that every item he picked out for his mother was chosen with intention. Not just, "This is expensive, she'll like it, but this color matches her eyes," or "She mentioned wanting something like this last year," or "She would never buy this for herself, so I'm buying it for her." That's the Hyunjin difference. He doesn't just spend, he pays attention. He remembers. He cares in high definition. And the luxury items? They'll eventually wear out, go out of style, get replaced by next season's collection. But the memory of her son walking her through those boutiques, holding doors open for her, watching her face light up at something she never would have dared to want for herself, that's forever. That's the real luxury. So Hyunjin wrapped his mother in designer love from head to toe. But if you think a shopping spree is the most creative way a Stray Kids member has shown love to a parent, the member at number 4 will completely rewrite your expectations. Because this one? It doesn't involve money at all, well, not primarily. It involves something far more valuable and far harder to give. Curious? You should be. Number 4, Han, the gift of time that money can't schedule, an idol's most expensive currency. Here's a question nobody asks enough. What is the single most expensive thing a top-tier K-pop idol possesses? It's not their penthouse apartment. It's not their luxury wardrobe. It's not even their talent. It's their time. Every single minute of a Stray Kids member's day is accounted for, scheduled, blocked, color-coded, and owned by somebody. The company, the producers, the choreographers, the stylists, the managers, the broadcast stations, the brand partners, the fans. An idol's calendar doesn't have gaps, it has conflicts. And Han Jae-sung, born September 14, 2000, in Incheon, South Korea, known to the world simply as Han, understood this better than anyone. Because Han isn't just a performer in Stray Kids. He's 1/3 of 3 Racha, the group's in-house production unit alongside Bang Chan and Changbin. That means on top of the already insane schedule of rehearsals, recordings, variety show appearances, fan meetings, photo shoots, and world tours, Han is also writing lyrics, composing melodies, arranging tracks, and sitting in studio sessions that regularly stretch past midnight. The man operates on a level of creative output that borders on superhuman. Stray Kids releases multiple albums per year, each packed with self-produced tracks, and Han's fingerprints are on nearly all of them. He writes with the speed and emotional precision of someone possessed, channeling his innermost thoughts, anxieties, joys, and fears into verses that millions of people around the world tattoo on their bodies and cry to in their bedrooms at 2 a.m. But here's the cost of that relentless productivity. Han barely sees his family. And that absence, that constant, gnawing absence, has been one of the most painful undercurrents of his career. Han has been startlingly transparent about his struggles with anxiety and panic disorder. He's discussed it on camera, in interviews, in lyrics. Songs like Alien and his deeply personal solo work reveal a young man who battles his own mind on a daily basis, who sometimes feels disconnected from the world around him, who craves normalcy in a life that is anything but normal. And at the root of a lot of that anxiety? The distance from his family. Han grew up in a close-knit household. Before entering JYP Entertainment as a trainee, he spent part of his childhood in Malaysia. His family lived there for a period, which is where he attended school and developed some of his early musical interests. That international upbringing gave him a broader perspective, but also made him deeply attached to the concept of home and family as anchors. When he entered the trainee system and eventually debuted, the separation from his parents hit him hard. Not in the dramatic, made-for-TV way, but in the quiet, erosive way, the missed dinners, the phone calls that had to be cut short because of schedule, the holidays spent in practice rooms instead of at the family table, the birthdays celebrated with members instead of parents. Each one small, each one survivable, but cumulatively, they weighed on him like stones in his pockets. So what did Han give his parents when he finally had the resources and, more critically, the determination to carve out space in his impossible schedule? He gave them himself. Han organized an elaborate family trip, a proper, extended, luxury vacation with his parents that wasn't a rushed 24-hour visit squeezed between schedules, but a genuine, multi-day experience where he could simply be their son again. Not Han of Stray Kids. Not the idol with 15 million Instagram followers. Not the Grammy-nominated producer. Just Sung, their kid. The details that have emerged through fan compilations and Han's own reflections paint a picture of meticulous planning. This wasn't a spontaneous, let's grab dinner. This was Han actively negotiating with his schedule, his management, and his own workaholic tendencies to block out real, substantial time for his family. In the K-pop industry, getting consecutive days off is harder than most people realize. Idol schedules are planned months in advance, and canceling or rescheduling even a single commitment can trigger a domino effect that disrupts entire production timelines. For Han to secure enough time for a meaningful family trip, he likely had to plan months ahead, possibly rearrange recording sessions, pre-record content, and front-load work before and after the trip to compensate for his absence. The logistical cost alone, the scheduling gymnastics, the pre-production crunch, the post-trip catch-up, is a form of expense that doesn't show up on any receipt but is enormously real. And then there's the actual financial cost of the trip itself. Han took his parents to experience things they'd never done before: luxury accommodations, fine dining, curated experiences. While the exact destination and specifics remain private, Han is notably protective of his family's privacy, rarely sharing identifying details that could expose them to fan attention or media intrusion. The glimpses he's offered suggest a trip designed around his parents' preferences, not his own. He's mentioned paying attention to things his mother casually mentioned wanting to try, restaurants his father expressed curiosity about, places they'd seen on TV and said, "That looks nice," without ever expecting to actually go. Han cataloged all of those small, offhand comments, the ones parents make without thinking, the ones they never expect their children to remember, and turn them into an itinerary. That level of attentiveness is what separates a gift from a gesture. Anyone with money can book a fancy hotel. But remembering that your mom once said she wanted to try a specific regional cuisine she saw on a variety show 3 years ago, and then finding the actual restaurant and reserving a table? That's love operating at a frequency most people can't even tune into. The estimated cost of an extended luxury family vacation in South Korea or abroad, covering premium accommodations, first class or business class travel if international, fine dining, and curated experiences, easily runs in the range of 30 to 60 million Korean won, or roughly 23,000 to 46,000 USD. That's a significant amount. But here's the part that makes Han's gift fundamentally different from every other entry on this list so far. The money was the easy part. For an idol of Han's caliber, with producer royalties, performance fees, and brand endorsement income flowing in, writing a check for a luxury trip is financially painless. What was genuinely expensive, what cost Han something that no amount of future earnings could replenish, was the time. Every day Han spent with his parents on that trip was a day he wasn't in the studio, wasn't writing, wasn't recording, wasn't advancing the next comeback. In an industry that treats momentum as oxygen, stepping away even briefly feels like holding your breath. And Han, with his anxiety, with his perfectionist tendencies, with his awareness that millions of fans are counting on him to deliver, choosing to pause, to breathe, to sit across from his parents at a dinner table and just talk, with no agenda, no deadline, no camera, that was the most expensive thing he could possibly give. Because time, once spent, doesn't come back. You can earn more money. You can buy another house, another car, another bag. But you cannot buy back a Tuesday afternoon spent laughing with your mom over a meal you remembered she wanted to try. You cannot purchase a quiet evening walking with your dad through a place he'd only ever seen in photographs. Those moments exist once, and then they become memories, and then they become the things you hold on to when the world gets loud again. Han understood that. At 20-something years old, in the middle of the most demanding career imaginable, he understood something that most people don't figure out until it's too late, that presence is the ultimate luxury. That showing up, truly showing up, for the people who showed up for you first, is the most expensive gift you'll ever give. Because it costs you the one thing you can never make more of. Stays who learned about this gift didn't just cry, they reassessed. They looked at their own parents, their own schedules, their own excuses for why they don't have time, and they felt something shift. Han didn't just give his parents a vacation. He gave his entire fandom a mirror. And if you're sitting there thinking, okay, that's beautiful, but how can anything top the emotional weight of that? Hold that thought. Because the member at number 3 took a completely different approach. They didn't buy luxury items. They didn't plan a trip. They invested in something permanent, something transformative, something that changed their parents' daily life in a way that hits different every single morning. What was it? Stick around. Number 3, Seungmin. The home renovation that rewrote his parents' mornings, a quiet son's loudest statement. Every group has one. The member who doesn't scream for attention. The member who doesn't go viral for outrageous antics or over-the-top reactions. The member who just shows up, does his job at an elite level, and lets the work speak for itself. In Stray Kids, that member is Kim Seungmin, born September 22, 2000, in Seoul, South Korea, and if you've been sleeping on him, this is your wake-up call. Because Seungmin, the member the industry respects and the fandom adores for his vocal precision, his unwavering consistency, and his hilariously dry sense of humor, pulled off one of the most thoughtful, most impactful, and most quietly devastating gifts on this entire list. He didn't buy something flashy. He didn't make a grand public gesture. He transformed the place where his parents live, the actual, physical space where they start and end every single day. Seungmin funded a comprehensive renovation of his parents' home. And to understand why this gift carries the weight it does, you need to understand who Seungmin is at his core, because this gift is essentially his personality converted into architecture. Seungmin is, by all accounts, the most normal member of Stray Kids, and he'd probably take that as the highest compliment you could give him. While other members are known for their explosive stage presence, their edgy fashion, or their larger-than-life personalities, Seungmin is known for being grounded, stable, reliable. He's the member who wakes up early, maintains a disciplined routine, keeps his living space tidy, and approaches everything from vocal practice to variety show appearances to fan interactions with a steady, methodical diligence that earns him the affectionate nickname the puppy from fans, not because he's excitable and chaotic, but because he's loyal, warm, and genuinely good-natured in a way that feels almost impossibly pure for someone in the entertainment industry. That groundedness? He got it from his parents. Seungmin has spoken with deep respect about his upbringing. His family wasn't extravagant. They were the kind of household where values mattered more than valuables, where doing your homework before watching TV wasn't negotiable, where respect for elders wasn't a suggestion, where hard work was modeled daily by parents who poured everything into raising their children right. Seungmin's academic discipline, his work ethic, his almost obsessive dedication to improving his vocal technique, all of it traces back to a household that prioritized substance over style. And the physical house itself? Like many middle-class Korean family homes, it was functional but dated. Comfortable enough, but carrying the wear and tear of years, maybe decades of family life. The kind of home where the kitchen appliances still work but are 2 generations behind current models. Where the bathroom tiles are clean but cracked. Where the wallpaper was trendy in 2005 but now feels like a time capsule. Where the heating system groans every winter and the air conditioning struggles every summer. It's not a bad home. It's a loved home. But it's a home that tells the story of parents who always invested in their children rather than in their own comfort. Every upgrade they could have made to the house, they redirected towards Seungmin's education, his trainee expenses, his future. The house aged so the son could grow. And Seungmin saw that. He saw it every time he came home from the JYP building during his trainee days. He saw the worn-out couch his father sat on after long workdays. He saw the kitchen where his mother cooked for the family using appliances that were older than he was. He saw the little compromises his parents made, the dripping faucet they never fixed because the plumber cost too much, the bedroom furniture they never replaced because it still works fine, the living room that could have been beautiful but was just adequate. And he filed all of it away in that meticulous, detail-oriented brain of his. When Stray Kids' success reached the level where Seungmin's personal earnings became substantial, and make no mistake, by 2022-2023, with album sales exceeding 10 million copies annually, sold-out world tours across multiple continents, and individual brand endorsement deals, every Stray Kids member was earning extremely well. Seungmin didn't go out and buy something dramatic. He went clinical. He went Seungmin. He hired professionals, interior designers, contractors, specialists, and he orchestrated a complete, top-to-bottom renovation of his parents' home. We're talking structural improvements, full kitchen remodel with modern appliances, bathroom overhauls with contemporary fixtures, new flooring throughout, updated electrical and plumbing systems, modern climate control. Fresh interior design that transformed the aesthetic from functional family home to this looks like it belongs in a Korean home interior magazine. A renovation of this scope in South Korea, particularly in Seoul or the greater Seoul metropolitan area where Seungmin's family is based, is not cheap. Not even close. Depending on the size of the home and the extent of the work, a full interior renovation in Korea ranges from 30 million to well over 100 million Korean won. That's roughly 23,000 to 77,000 USD on the moderate end, and significantly higher if premium materials, custom cabinetry, high-end appliances, and professional interior design consultation are involved. And given Seungmin's personality, the guy who researches everything thoroughly, who doesn't cut corners, who approaches every task with the seriousness of a final exam, you can bet this wasn't a budget renovation. This was done right. Every tile chosen with intention. Every fixture selected for durability and aesthetics. Every room redesigned not based on trends, but based on how his parents actually live, where his mother spends the most time, what his father needs for comfort, how the natural light moves through the space throughout the day. That's the Seungmin approach. He didn't just throw money at a contractor and say, make it nice. He was involved. He paid attention. He translated years of quietly observing his parents' daily routines into design decisions that would improve their quality of life in tangible, everyday ways. And here's what makes this gift philosophically different from a car or a handbag or even a house. A renovation doesn't replace your life. It elevates the life you already have. Seungmin didn't relocate his parents to some unfamiliar luxury apartment where they'd feel out of place. He took the home they'd built their entire family history and the walls where Seungmin took his first steps, the kitchen where he ate his mother's cooking before school, the living room where the family watched TV together on weekends. And he honored that history by making it better. He said, in effect, this home is sacred. It's where our family happened. I'm not going to replace it. I'm going to make it worthy of the people who live in it. That distinction is everything. Because for Seungmin's parents, waking up in their renovated home isn't like moving into a stranger's house. It's like waking up in their own story, except now the pages are printed on better paper. The coffee tastes the same, but the kitchen it's brewed in is beautiful. The morning light hits the same windows, but now the rooms it illuminates are warm, modern, and designed for comfort. Every single morning, when Seungmin's mother walks into her new kitchen, when his father settles into a living room that finally feels as dignified as the man sitting in it, they experience their son's love. Not as a memory. Not as an object on a shelf. As the very environment they exist in. Seungmin literally made love the architecture of his parents' daily life. And the fandom reaction when details of this renovation surfaced was unlike anything on the typical K-pop fan timeline. There were no OMG King tweets or expensive taste edits. Instead, there was something quieter, a collective, almost reverent acknowledgement that Seungmin's gift was, in many ways, the most mature and thoughtful gesture on this list. It wasn't about showing off wealth. It wasn't about making a statement to the public. It was about fixing the dripping faucet. It was about replacing the old kitchen tiles. It was about making sure the heating system doesn't groan anymore when winter hits Seoul. It was about the small things. And that's the whole point. Seungmin understood, at an age when most people are still figuring out how to do their own laundry, that the most profound gifts aren't the ones that make you gasp. They're the ones that make your parents' ordinary Tuesday morning a little more comfortable, a little more beautiful, a little more like the life they deserved all along but never demanded. So number 3 is a home renovation. Unsexy on paper. Devastating in practice. Pure Seungmin in execution. But if you think this list has peaked emotionally, you are dangerously unprepared for what's coming. The member at number 2 did something so unexpectedly specific, so uniquely personal, and so expensive that it made even the other Stray Kids members do a double take. And it involves 4 legs, a heartbeat, and a love that transcends species. Intrigued? You should be absolutely intrigued. Number 2, Lino, the cat kingdom he built inside his parents' home, love with 4 legs and no limits. If you know even one single thing about Lino, born Lee Miho on October 25, 1998, in Gimpo, South Korea, you know about the cats. You know about Sunny, Doonji, and Dory. You know because Lino will not let you not know. This man has turned his 3 cats into arguably the most famous felines in the entire K-pop industry, and that's not hyperbole. Sunny, Doonji, and Dory have their own dedicated fan base, their own fan-edited content, their own hashtags trending across multiple platforms, and more screen time on Lino's personal social media than most human celebrities manage for themselves. Lino doesn't just love his cats. Lino is architecturally, philosophically, financially, and spiritually organized around his cats. They're his emotional center of gravity. They're the thing he talks about when interviews get boring. They're the first thing he mentions when asked what he misses most during long tours. They're the screensaver on his phone, the subject of his Instagram stories, and according to the other Stray Kids members, who oscillate between finding it endearing and finding it mildly insane. They're the only topic guaranteed to make Lino's famously stoic face crack into a genuine, unguarded smile. But here's the thing most people don't think about. Lino is gone. A lot. Like, a staggering amount of the time. Stray Kids' schedule in recent years has been genuinely relentless. Multiple album cycles per year, world tours spanning months across dozens of cities, variety show appearances, brand commitments, award show performances, fan meetings, and the general machinery of being one of the biggest acts in global music. Lino is not home. He's in studios, on stages, in airports, in hotel rooms, in vans moving between schedules. And during all of that time, who takes care of Sunny, Dunji, and Dory? His parents. Lino's mother and father have become the full-time caretakers of 3 cats that their son adores with an intensity that borders on parental. And this is where the story of Lino's gift begins, not with a purchase, but with a realization. At some point, as Stray Kids' success catapulted and Lino's absences from home grew longer and more frequent, he realized that asking his parents to care for 3 cats wasn't a small ask. Cats aren't dogs. They don't just need food and water. They need environmental enrichment, vertical spaces to climb, scratching surfaces to maintain their claws, hiding spots for when they feel overstimulated, clean litter management, regular veterinary care, temperature-controlled environments, and especially for indoor cats in Korea, where most pet cats live exclusively indoors due to urban density and traffic, they need their living space to be specifically designed for feline well-being. A cat living in a generic human apartment isn't thriving. It's surviving. And Lino, with his obsessive dedication to his cat's happiness, was not about to let Sunny, Dunji, and Dory merely survive while he was away. So what did he do? He transformed his parents' home into a cat paradise. And when I say paradise, I mean he went fully Miho on this project, which, if you know his personality, means meticulous, thorough, uncompromising, and probably slightly terrifying in its attention to detail. Lino invested in a complete feline-optimized redesign of his parents' living space. We're talking custom-built cat towers that reach from floor to ceiling, not the cheap, carpet-covered ones you find on pet store shelves, but professionally designed. Architecturally integrated structures that blend with the home's interior while providing the cats with vertical territory that mimics natural climbing environments. In South Korea, custom cat furniture from premium pet interior designers runs anywhere from 2 to 8 million won per piece. That's roughly 1,500 to 6,000 USD per unit. For 3 cats with different personalities and territorial preferences, you need multiple structures throughout the home. Wall-mounted cat walkways, those sleek, modern shelving systems that allow cats to traverse rooms at elevated heights, were installed, creating aerial highways that let Sunny, Dunji, and Dory move through the home on their own private elevated network. These systems, when professionally installed with proper wall anchoring to support the weight and movement of active cats, cost 3 to 10 million won per room, depending on complexity and materials. Multiple rooms, multiple systems, the numbers stack fast. But Lino didn't stop at furniture. He invested in premium climate control modifications to ensure the home maintained optimal temperature for feline comfort year-round. Cats are sensitive to temperature fluctuations, and Korean summers can be brutally humid while winters are bitterly cold. Upgraded air filtration systems to manage cat dander and keep the air quality pristine, important not just for the cats, but for his parents' respiratory health. Specialized flooring in key areas easy to clean, scratch-resistant surfaces that can handle the inevitable reality of 3 cats sprinting, sliding, and occasionally knocking things over at 3 a.m. because cats are, at their core, tiny chaos agents with zero respect for human sleep schedules. And then there's the ongoing cost, the part of this gift that isn't a one-time expense, but a perpetual commitment. Lino set up comprehensive premium veterinary care for all 3 cats. In South Korea, pet healthcare is entirely out of pocket. There's no government-subsidized animal health system and premium veterinary packages for cats, covering regular checkups, dental care, vaccinations, blood work, emergency coverage, and specialist consultations run approximately 2 to 4 million won per cat per year. For 3 cats, that's 6 to 12 million won annually roughly. For 500 to 9,000 USD per year, every year, indefinitely. He sources the highest quality cat food available, and if you think cat food is cat food, Lee No would like a word with you. Premium cat nutrition in Korea, from brands that use human-grade ingredients, grain-free formulations, and species-appropriate protein ratios, costs significantly more than standard supermarket options. For 3 cats eating premium wet and dry food, supplemented with treats and occasional raw feeding, the monthly food bill alone can hit 300,000 to 500,000 won roughly. 2. 700 to 600 per year just on food. Custom cat beds, interactive toys that stimulate hunting instincts, automated litter systems that self-clean to reduce the burden on his parents, water fountains that keep filtered water circulating to encourage hydration. Every single element of his cat's lives has been elevated to a premium standard. And all of this exists inside his parents' home. Which means Lee No's gift to his parents isn't just, I bought stuff for my cats, and you happen to live there. It's far more layered than that. By creating this elaborate feline environment, Lee No fundamentally changed the daily experience of his parents' home life. His parents wake up every morning in a home filled with life, 3 cats padding around on custom walkways, curling up on heated beds, chasing toys across scratch-resistant floors. The home isn't quiet and empty, haunted by the absence of a son who's always on tour. It's alive. It's warm. It's animated by the constant, soft presence of 3 little creatures who need feeding, who need attention, who jump on the couch uninvited and purr against your leg when you're watching TV. Lee No gave his parents companions. Not just pets, daily companions who fill the space that his absence creates. Every time his mother reaches down to scratch Dunji behind the ears, every time his father pretends to be annoyed that Sunny is sleeping on his newspaper, every time Dory does something ridiculous that makes both parents laugh, that's Lee No's love. Operating remotely through proxy, mediated by 3 furry agents who don't know they're carrying the emotional weight of a son who wishes he could be home more. The total estimated investment, combining the initial home modifications, custom furniture, climate and air quality upgrades, premium veterinary care, nutrition, supplies, and ongoing maintenance, conservatively lands somewhere between 80 to 150 million Korean won over the span of several years. That's roughly 60,000 to 115,000 USD. For cats. Let that sit with you for a moment. Lee No has spent the equivalent of a luxury car, possibly more, on creating a world-class living environment for 3 cats that also doubles as an emotional support system for his parents during his prolonged absences. And here's the part that wrecks you if you think about it too long. Lee No knows he can't be home. He knows the career he chose, the career he fought for, the career he loves, requires him to be absent from the people and animals he loves most. He can't fix that. He can't rewrite the terms of his existence. But what he can do is engineer the next best thing, a home so full of life, so warm, so carefully designed for comfort and joy, that his parents never feel alone even when their son is on the other side of the planet performing for 60,000 people. Number 1, I.N. The apartment that ended the distance, a Magne's childhood promise fulfilled. And here we are. Number 1. The one we've been building toward this entire time. The one that the title promised would be heartwarming, and I meant every letter of that word. Because this story isn't about the biggest price tag, the flashiest brand, or the most luxurious experience. This story is about a boy who made a promise and a man who kept it. Hyunjin, born February 8, 2001 in Busan, South Korea, is the youngest member of Stray Kids. The Magne. The baby. The one the other 7 members have collectively raised, protected, teased, mentored, and adored since the group's formation. If you've watched any Stray Kids content, any V-Live, any behind-the-scenes footage, any variety show appearance, you've seen it. The way the older members instinctively look out for I.N, the way they soften around him, the way they take pride in watching him grow from the shy, braces-wearing teenager on the survival show into the confident, powerful vocalist and performer he is today. I.N is everyone's little brother. But before he was Stray Kids' baby, he was someone else's baby. He was the youngest child of a family in Busan, South Korea's second-largest city, a port town on the southeastern coast known for its beaches, its seafood, its distinctive Sadori dialect, and its fierce, loyal, salt-of-the-earth people. Busan is not Seoul. The gap between the two cities, culturally, economically, socially, is significant. Seoul is where the entertainment industry lives, where the agencies are headquartered, where the auditions happen, where careers are made or broken. Busan is 325 kilometers away, roughly a 2.5-hour ride on the KTX high-speed rail, and for a teenage boy chasing a K-pop dream, it might as well have been on another planet. When Hyunjin left Busan to join JYP Entertainment as a trainee, he was young. Really young. And unlike some trainees who grew up in Seoul or its surrounding areas and could still go home to their parents on weekends or off days, Hyunjin couldn't just pop home. Every visit required planning, travel time, scheduling, luxuries that the trainee system doesn't exactly hand out generously. So the visits became less frequent. The phone calls stayed constant, but the physical presence, the hugs, the home-cooked meals, the simple act of sitting in the same room as his parents and just existing in their warmth, that became rare. And Hyunjin felt it. God, he felt it. There's a moment, and stays who've been with the group since pre-debut know exactly which moment I'm talking about, during the Stray Kids survival show, when Hyunjin broke down crying. Not the polished, camera-ready tears of a seasoned performer. The ugly, heaving, can't-catch-your-breath sobs of a homesick kid who missed his mom and dad so much it was physically painful. It was one of the rawest moments in the entire show's run, and it revealed something fundamental about I.N that all the confident performances and bright smiles sometimes obscure. This boy left his family behind to chase a dream he wasn't even sure would work out, and the weight of that separation never fully lifted. His parents, back in Busan, carried the same weight. Every parent whose child leaves home for the entertainment industry carries it, the worry, the longing, the bittersweet pride of watching your kid on a screen instead of across the dinner table. But for I.N's parents, there was an added dimension, distance. They couldn't drop by the company to bring him food. They couldn't show up to a recording as a surprise. They were in Busan, he was in Seoul, and the KTX didn't run on the schedule of a mother's need to see her son. Here's where the promise comes in. According to what's been shared through fan accounts, interviews, and I.N's own emotional reflections during broadcasts, Hyunjin made a promise to his parents before he left Busan. The kind of promise a child makes with absolute, uncomplicated sincerity, the kind adults often dismiss as naive, but children mean with every fiber of their being. He told them, "When I make it, I'll bring you to Seoul. You won't be far from me anymore." A kid's promise. Simple. Direct. Unrealistic, maybe, at the time, a teenage trainee with no debut date, no guaranteed income, no certainty that any of this would work out, promising to relocate his parents to the most expensive city in South Korea. It was the kind of thing parents smile at and gently file away, never expecting it to actually happen. Except it happened. When Stray Kids' trajectory went from successful to historic, when the album sales hit numbers that even JYP Entertainment's most optimistic projections hadn't predicted, when the world tours expanded from arenas to stadiums, when the brand deals and endorsements and streaming revenue converged into a financial reality that would have seemed like science fiction to that crying teenager on the survival show, I.N did exactly what he said he would do. He bought his parents an apartment in Seoul. Not in the outskirts. Not in some distant satellite city connected by a commuter bus. In Seoul. Close to where he lives and works. Close enough that the distance that defined his trainee years, that haunted his early career, that made him cry on national television as a teenager, that distance was erased. Permanently. If you have any understanding of what real estate in Seoul costs, you know that this is not a casual purchase. Seoul's apartment market is one of the most expensive in Asia. The average price of an apartment in Seoul proper ranges from 800 million to well over 1.5 billion Korean won. Here's the thing, we called this list the 8 most expensive gifts, and yeah, the numbers are staggering. We're talking about millions of dollars combined, spent by 8 young men who are barely into their 20s. But if you walked away from this list thinking it was about money, you missed the point entirely. This list was never about price tags. It was about receipts, emotional receipts. Every gift on this countdown was a response to a sacrifice. Bang Chan's parents let their 13-year-old fly across the world alone. Changbin's father worked himself to the bone in silence. Felix's family watched their son get eliminated on live television and held their breath for weeks. Hyunjin's mother held him together when the whole internet tried to tear him apart. Han's parents learned to love a son through phone screens and scheduled calls. Seungmin's parents poured every resource into their children instead of their own comfort. Lino's parents became full-time cat guardians so their son could chase his career with peace of mind. And I.N's parents stood on a train platform in Busan and watched their youngest child disappear into a city that felt like it was swallowing him whole. 8 sacrifices. 8 answers. That's the real math here. Not one, not dollars, not square footage or designer labels. The real currency is this. I remember what you did for me, and I will spend the rest of my life making sure you know it wasn't wasted. Stray Kids didn't just build a career. They built 8 bridges back to the people who believed in them before anyone else did. And if that's not worth watching, if that's not worth knowing, then I don't know what is. This has been the 8 most expensive gifts Stray Kids members gave their parents. Thanks for staying till the end. Now go call your mom.